Welcome back to Conversations and Catapults, the #1 after show for the #1 D&D podcast. I am your host, Nathan, and today I have an alternate universe group of players joining me today. Say hello, players.
Hello, my name is Ben, and I play the alternate level 7 gnome wizard, Windsor Wallaby, on the hit podcast that you know and love, Trebuchets and Trials.
Hi, my name is Carla, and I play the level 7 Tiefling Rogue, Integrity Eye Idleberry, from the hit show, Trials and Trebuchets.
Hi, I'm Sarah from the alternate universe where they pronounce it Z, and I play Mara Mirshand, the level 20 elf half warlock.
Elf half warlock.
I just play her elf
Elf
half.
half.
The human half is like doing her own thing. It's her quest in life to like find it and like merge into two. It's a whole thing.
that
It's a
sounds
good
so
time.
cool. Hey there, it's me, Moss, and I play the 7th leveled magic user of a sorcerer persuasion, Cinderman, Sereneth. Insert When Worlds Collide from SpongeBob.
Well, excellent. I'm so happy to be joined by all of you, and I think we have a very, we were talking before the show, trying to figure out what all you can really say, and I guess my first question is, what the fuck was that, eh?
Good fucking question.
I would say it's definitely a lot to take in.
I bet, and it's a lot to think about as well, I'm sure. We have lots of theorists, as we have made clear on this show, in the fandom, but I assume also in the group, y'all have tons of ideas about what's going on as well, especially now that we have a few more breadcrumbs to pick up on.
I think I have a lot more questions than when I came in with.
Yeah.
It's just like growing and growing, like, those pebbles.
Do pebbles grow?
I'm thinking of like orbs, like the Orbeez. Like the Orbeez, where it's like they just grow and grow and they multiply.
Gotcha.
Yeah, where you add water and then...
Yeah.
So not pebbles at all.
Do they like turn
pebbles.
like invisible
They're
or
soft
something
pebbles.
in the water?
But I think like I came in with a few questions, and then there's more and more questions from like the things that happen in the last 2 episodes.
Imagine a tree sapling, and it grows and grows, and it gets more and more branches. It's exactly...
And it grows on
it's
someone's
exactly
head.
what it... Yep, there we go. Exactly like that.
Yeah, do y'all have any thoughts or
I
theories?
mean, I kind of have. Do you want me to pretend I didn't write down after you said, please write this down for the recording?
Well, you know what? I think either way, that part is going in the podcast, so we might as well
Dang.
just acknowledge it.
Okay, for any kind of reference, if Luke ever does put this in, we were talking, I talk about a lot of random stuff, and I don't write things down. And so Nathan said, please write this down. And so I was like, okay, because I'll forget this if I don't. So what I wrote down specifically, timeline, arrow, going to place leading to shepherd death or vice versa. Basically, did us going into this new reality or space, is that like disturbing the timelines or whatever? And that means like the shepherd can like sense the shepherd of probability from the confluence, like is that leading to their death? Or because something is happening to the shepherd of probability, does that mean that that's why where we ended up is so weird because something is already happening?
Ben, I know that you had a few thoughts that I told you to hold on to before we began recording. Do you want to go ahead and share them now?
I do have a few thoughts. They're kind of unrelated to what Sam mentioned, so I'm not sure if that is a good place to pick up on, but maybe it'll come back to that. The first one that I sort of had questions about was back during the whole like Pebble Demon fight. Before that, we were in the hallway with the bucket, and we came up to that the figure of the mountain that we were on. Right?
Right.
So that like transition into this weird alternate world happened at that time. We all felt that pull and we wondered what the hell is going on. So the big question is, was it really the shepherd of probability pulling the strings there? Or was something else in play, like something else entirely separate from that? Was something else causing that merge? I'm just wondering if it wasn't a direct cause of that like statuette and more of like, I'm not sure if it was more coincidence or if it was an actual ploy.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it seems like there are 3 distinct things that could have possibly caused this, right? And the problem is that we don't know if this is all one interconnected thing or several distinct ones, because there's Shiora in general, right? Because we know that the creation of another plane is likely connected to Shiora in some way. We sort of devised that in the last arc, and we shifted there in the Shiora room, right? When we shifted to another world, it was in the room surrounded by Shiora things. So this could be directly connected to Shiora. There's also the universe convergence that was mentioned in the Trading Places arc by the gods, something to do with worlds converging or timelines converging or something like that was mentioned as well. So this could also have a potential connection there. And then finally, there's the idea that this is directly caused by or somehow caused the Shepherd of Potentiality thing. So I don't know whether those are actually like 3 separate distinct things as we understand it, or if this is all one interconnected phenomenon. But in some way, it has to be tied to at least one of those. The question is just which ones and how many.
And also, how do we find out?
Yeah.
And also,
Like
how do I go home?
Like I have a strong feeling like that the third like Sarah's like third and second options are very like closely related, where the shepherd of I like that we're now using the word shepherd, because I think in the episode I kept on calling them confluence of potentiality, but that's not a person, but like the concept.
The place.
I want to apologize. I think you got the confluence thing from me, because that's just constantly what I called it, because that name just stuck out to me when we first went there, and I was like, oh yeah, confluence. Yeah, this is the entire thing, confluence.
So technically they're the shepherd of the confluence of potentiality, the SCOP. So the SCOP is
so good.
The
I love
SCOB.
the scalp.
So I feel like the SCOP is related to the merging of timelines, and maybe like because their power is so weak that things are merging rather than being kept separate. That's why they're like, please help find someone for me so that I'm not failing at my job, or else I'm not going to heaven.
What?
Heaven?
That exists. I don't know.
I don't know where you got
I don't know where they go when they die. That is not hell.
That got me thinking, back to the whole like Shioran thing. We know that Shiora was like this really like big empire that existed in the past. We know there's been a lot of like really crazy stuff they've been doing with the whole orbs. There's the whole progenitor and all that. So now with the planes merging, I wonder if that is also directly or indirectly caused by the result of the Shiorans messing around with stuff that they shouldn't have. Maybe they already like met with this shepherd of probability, and maybe as a result they thought that maybe they could use it or them to further their own deeds in finding, like, I'm not exactly sure what that could be.
This might be intentional on the SCOP's part.
Fucking SCOP.
Merging the auxiliary and the prime material plane in order to finally, like, clean house a little bit before death.
I wonder
Damn.
I wonder if maybe because of that, maybe it didn't like originally acknowledge or like the fact that this other copy plane existed and thought it was against like the natural order of things, and decided, you know what? I'm going to take it and I'm going to stick it back together, like just easy as pie.
But because the SCOP isn't as powerful as they once were, or because they need a successor that they haven't found yet, they did it sloppily.
Ooh,
Um,
it's a bad
causing-
Scopely.
Scopely.
Jurassic Park.
Scopely. There's the title.
Perfect. We'll find a dinosaur. Give them the I don't even know what we're supposed to. Honestly, I don't know what we're supposed to give them to be like, hey, you're now the successor. But we'll give that to a
imagine
dinosaur,
it's like
and the
if
dinosaur will.
Like if you took 2 milkshakes and stuck them in a blender, and now you have one awful milkshake.
Well, it depends on what flavors you put in there.
Yeah, no, let's make this a milkshake podcast real quick.
No.
But over this little, like, batch of episodes, tell me, what was the biggest surprise as you guys began to explore this alternate wild cliff? There was a lot. There was seeing Toll, there was seeing Fadan, and then there was also realizing that Sereneth could have pulled the Sweetling out of her head this whole time and has just been letting it grow.
I figured, okay, to be fair, I kind of figured that that she would be able to, but the question was, I need something to put it in. I can't just rip it out of my head and then just walk around holding like
That'd be so mean, yeah.
Yeah, I
Why
need to
not?
I need to give it a You're the one who was saying, "Oh, why didn't I just rip it out before?" I had to give it a place to like sit in and like drink water and stuff. I can't just like leave it out roots bare.
Does it have a mouth that it can sip in?
What?
A mouth?
I have a mouth and I must sip.
That is more disturbing than my thing where I was like, I probably drank my blood before that and then I put it in the pot.
Listen, it's from the plane of Ithithil where they have the mythology that elves drink blood. I think it's possible to just surmise that everything drinks some form of blood.
You mean the trees are
plane.
I
vampiric?
mean, yeah, actually,
trees are
everything
elves.
in the plane of
Oh, yeah.
Ithithil is just secretly
Oh.
a vampire.
Yeah, but doesn't that scare you of just dropping off something from Ithithil into this other plane that is not it feels like introducing an animal into a newer environment that could like
And also, to
don't
be
get me
fair,
wrong,
I
yes, you
love that that's
absolutely-
the justification.
you absolutely
I did not
have.
know.
No
We
arguing
have
that.
done worse than bringing a tree. There's literally been a door that's just been left open.
I mean, Dessa's group literally brings beasts and animals from Ithithil.
Yeah, they just
Alright.
bring whatever they can catch and be
If
like,
I can
we got this old creature, time to wrangle it up and give it to fucking Yexum so he can do whatever he wants
If
with
I
it.
can
forgot about that.
defend
That's totally
myself,
fair.
If I can defend myself, I didn't know how messed up this place was when I took the sweetling out of my head and kind of just set it to the side. I didn't Serenep and I myself did not know about like all the crazy shit that's happening right now in this place. Like, most likely gonna go back and pick it up, put it back in my head, and be like, okay, we're gonna pretend that didn't happen.
I wonder if it can be like put back in, like if it'll just like take like root
That'd be
again.
fucking cool.
Or
Yeah.
if it'll regrow.
Yeah.
And
Ooh.
Serenep is just now a sweetling little garden on her head.
My nourishment.
You can probably
yes, the
attach it to your
blood.
back.
Perfect.
Carly, you were gonna say?
Oh, I was just gonna say like attaching it to the back, just because like it's easier to carry something on the back than it is on
But
the
then I
head.
won't be 9 feet
But
tall.
also, Sarah was gonna say something too.
True.
It was just in relation to Nathan's original question, which was what was the most surprising thing
Yes, thank you.
that happened when you arrived. And I think that the
was.
most surprising thing was that the assistant at the infirmary remembered us, which
yeah.
is very confusing because it seems as though we have traveled to a completely different place, and yet they think that the time was different, but they still remember us having been there earlier that day, which I think is the part that's the most incongruous for me.
You're
it's a
right.
different day.
For some reason, I thought that was when y'all were coming away from your big fight and took a rest there, not when y'all were coming in there after leaving Ithithil. I was very confused.
No.
on the
Like
timeline.
we came in, right? Like we came back from Ithithil. We came in, we took a rest, and then we went down, right? We shifted universes, and then we came back and we spoke to the assistant. The assistant still remembered us having been there, quote unquote, earlier that day, despite the fact that it was theoretically 2 weeks later and seemingly a completely different universe.
Yeah,
Mhm.
definitely in a chronological standpoint, that was the weirdest fucking shit.
Yeah.
So that will lead into my second point that I wanted to bring up, because if she remembered us coming in earlier, I'm wondering if maybe there actually isn't any alternate versions of ourselves, because those alternate selves already merged with us because we were already existing. So the reason why Toll exists now is because Toll is theoretically, he's dead. Like, Toll is dead in
Not in our
ours, not in our hearts. They are
But
still
very
here
physically
in
he's
our
dead,
hearts.
yes.
Toll is dead. So the one in the other universe is not. So because of the merge, that's why that Toll exists and doesn't recall anything, because we've never met that Toll before. So what I think is, because there's already existing copies of each person, they merge just like the planes. But if one thing is missing from one, then it doesn't merge or do anything. It just replaces it with whatever copy was left.
So is
I get
Artis
that.
permanently a rock?
We don't
Yes.
know.
Technically,
So that
maybe.
would also
Yeah, I don't know.
kind of explain why in the dorms, like the first couple of floors, I think, were different, and then after that it was the regular dorms that we're used to, because they kind of floated on top of each other. One place already had the 3 floors, but then in our world it was like, I think it was up to like 6 floors, so they kind of just merged together and created a weird architectural mess.
But then
once
there
the
were
resume
8
is
towers
gone-
instead of 9.
Right.
So if it's the
That's
idea
true.
that like things are being copied, and if something exists in one world, it'll merge into the other, what happened to the 9th tower? And why is it
It
not
was
here?
actually just
That is a
projection.
good point.
They wanted to look cool.
Oh yeah, illusion. The School of Illusion just
That's the
fakes
illusion
theirs.
department. Yeah,
I guess
that's
my
impressive.
theory also kind of gets debunked too, because there was young Fadan,
Yeah.
and then young Fadan shattered.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Whoops.
Because
Sorry.
maybe it was because we mentioned something that we weren't supposed to,
Mhm.
and that fucked something up.
But she
Yeah.
And
did
then eventually,
recognize
like-
It reminds me of like if you do you know like those scenes in movies where you're like speaking to a robot character and you like say a paradox to the robot and they just like break down? It kind of made me think of
Right.
that. Like we basically created some kind of time paradox by mentioning Artist to Fadan, which caused her to be destroyed. And so I wonder if that would also happen to other parts of the world, right? Like if we were to fucking get a megaphone and go into the courtyard and be like, it is this year, if people who are quote unquote not supposed to be there would just like fucking shatter because the like weird, delicately created time ecosystem just fucking gets pulled out of whack in like a paradox sense.
Yeah, it's kind of weird
Well-
how far it would go.
Yeah, the ninth tower not being there could just be because possibly universe merges function the way that I thought, right? But because there's one tower missing, that could just be a fuck up of the shepherd, right? Because they're not at full power, so maybe the inconsistencies are because they are not able to fully merge everything.
That's why they
That's
need
interesting.
a
I
successor.
kind of thought it was like sort of 2 times, like literally just being like smushed together. So like you have stuff from half of one universe and stuff from another half. So like part of the campus, part of the campus could have just been like literally like what the campus looked like 30 or so years ago. Or no, not even. It was like
hundreds of
I don't
years
even know
ago
how
at
many
that
different
point.
timelines are
100
put
years?
here. The hundreds of years ago that Fadan went to school, the decades before the sewers were built, like all of these different times. And so I wonder if basically it's just multiple things being like unceremoniously smushed. So it's like, that's part of the old campus. This is part of like the pre-refinement, like infirmary. Here's our dorms. Here's your dorms. Just everything basically
Yeah.
being like
That
jammed
could
together.
explain why some of the dorms didn't have nameplates on them.
Yeah.
I guess then
It's sort of like
Wasn't a thing yet.
I was just gonna say that it's like with what you're saying, I sort of imagine it as like pixels, where different pieces of different timelines exists in this like location that we are in right now,
Oh, okay.
and like different parts is like different parts of the potential planes or worlds is like how I'm understanding what you're saying, and I think that's super cool.
Yeah, it's like a
Yes.
puzzle. Like it's 2 different puzzles thrown together and trying to make a picture out of both.
Yes, that's so accurate. Yeah.
That's
The
what they pay
solution
me
is-
for.
It's like, this
They
piece
pay you?
it could work. You just like shove it in there and it just like
Yes.
it like looks like it fits, but it clearly doesn't, and it's like the pieces are bending.
And-
Yes.
Is the entire podcast going to end with, and then this person woke up from their dream, and then I will riot?
What if all of reality is just a dream
I mean,
of the shepherd
Maybe.
of
Who
the
knows?
probability?
I kinda-
makes
oh
you
my God.
think.
just thought of something, if it's okay to bring up here.
Absolutely.
What if this is like a beta test of putting everything back? Like going with the idea of like what Sarah said, like timelines are converging, kind of like these places are converging, but it's like generally like in like our Wildcliff, for instance, the Shepherd of Potentiality wasn't this involved in the world, but like the mirror thing that just happened, like the effect that happened there, maybe this is like somehow we fell back through, not exactly like the mirror, but like kind of like to that effect. And this is kind of maybe a trial run of this is what would happen if we tried to put everything back together. And another part of why the Shepherd kind of like is telling us to bring a successor so that we can do this properly, maybe? Just like the mirror effect thing, and like the amount that the Shepherd has already kind of stepped in and been like, hey, this is what I can do in this reality that you guys have entered. Cool, huh? I just killed somebody. But like, it's not something that we've seen the Shepherd be able to do before. Mind you, this could just be abilities that they've had that we just never got to see in our time in the mirror. So
I gotcha.
yeah.
That is, it's so, I do enjoy like talking theories with everyone here, but it's also like, it's it feels very much like we are all blind trying to figure out a room in the dark.
We are the flies on the spider web.
So
that was a weird.
It
It
was,
kind
and
of goes
it
into
didn't
our
quite make
theory that
sense.
Luke is actually just a bunch of spiders in a trench coat. So I mean, yeah.
who do you think would be unmortal and wise? Who do you think would be the worst pick to fit that description?
Yes.
The
No,
worst pick.
Nesca.
Oh boy.
How
Yeah.
do you picture on that? Like,
Listen, if you want your orb, just like make timelines fucking shift and like just go into a timeline where there's an orb and just fucking pluck it out of there.
Yeah, just fish for the timeline that has like the easiest orb you could fucking get, and just yoink.
it's like talking
Yeah.
to someone being like, hey, I know you want to be a queen. How about we make you a god instead? That way we keep you from becoming
Yeah.
a queen. And that seems fine.
So you want everything? Let me give you everything.
Yes.
I really have the best one in my head.
I'll allow you to say the best
Now
one.
do the opposite of
Yeah.
that.
I'll allow you to do the best
It's hard
one.
to find the worst one because I love everyone. Yes, even Salty and Ferdinand, okay? Okay, actually no, I hate Loud.
That's who I was thinking of.
So Loud is like
I don't think
definitely
Loud is
a
immortal,
bad
though.
one.
Not yet.
I wouldn't give Loud the power to control the planes. But can I say the best one? Just because I feel super bad
I'll allow it.
that I hurt their feelings. I think Semolai would make a great sword.
Aw.
Genuinely?
Oh yeah,
That was something
are
I was
Are they
thinking
technically
about, yeah.
immortal?
We don't know, but if they were,
Yeah.
Similai would be
I
such a
mean,
good shepherd.
Right?
Also, they
Like,
deserve a promotion.
That is the safest place because they get to choose who can come to them. So it's like,
And there's very clear consequences if you do break the rules, as we learned about the Ivory Masterwoman turning into a stick.
Oh, time and time again.
that'd be a good episode title.
Ooh.
When will you
Your
learn?
actions have consequences.
Your actions have consequences.
I have such trouble with picking who would be the worst because in my mind, the Shepherd of Potentiality doesn't in particular like I understand like we're talking about like if Nesca got it, like she'd probably jump into timelines and just take whatever she wanted, which would be one of the worst things, which I kind of agree with on that. So I think Nesca would be my choice. But like the big thing is like the Shepherd I feel like doesn't interfere with the reality unless like what's happening right now. Like I need you to find my successor now because death is a rolling in kind of thing. But like I think the biggest thing that the Shepherd would have to do is watch instead of step in and do things. So it's like we have to find someone who's wise in the sense of they have to know what could destroy time and what is only a blip that will even itself out if you just wait and be patient with it.
You know which wise unmortal person only pops up when absolutely necessary?
Salty.
Mr. Wiggles.
Oh, shit! Oh, fuck!
But then Mr. Wiggles wouldn't be part of the group anymore because Mr. Wiggles would be in the fucking mirror dome.
But Mr. Wiggles would be
I
with you
know.
always, you know?
Oh,
Mr.
Mr.
Wiggles would be all
Wiggles.
around us.
Oh, you're gonna carry
was
around a
imagining
shard
Mr.
of mirror
Wiggles.
and just look at it sometimes, and there's Mr. Wiggles
A cat's
watching
eye.
you. Ah,
Alternatively.
Ben is not very happy about that.
No, you
we're giving
Ben
away
was
your cat.
immediately
I'm sorry.
don't you dare
Face.
touch my cat.
I am
You
thinking.
then end up getting
no.
a real cat.
Alternatively, you know who can't die anymore? And it's very wise?
Ferdinand. Because they're already dead.
Wah, wah.
Artists. If you're a rock, you can't die.
Oh, I mean, if he's a soul, he's technically
I can't
unmortal,
wait to
and
put
he's a
this
pretty.
Triangle
he's
necklace.
he's a wise guy.
Is artist wise?
True. Canon
Yes.
Nathan. Excuse me,
He's
let me
wise.
amend.
We just don't listen to
Okay,
him.
Canon Nathan, I support.
Canon
I
Nathan
support
would be
Canon Nathan
great.
doing this.
Canon Nathan is
Yeah.
also
Oh
stuck
my
in
God.
a rock, so I just imagine us trying to put the necklace thing. I think the necklace, honestly, is like the here is the honor, you are now the new person, and we try to put it on the pebble that Canon Nathan is inside. It just falls off because there's no fucking neck on it. It just sits on the floor around it. It's like that's it. That you did it.
Ah, that's a secret. It's all neck.
Oh shit!
Wait, it's all neck?
It's all neck.
I mean,
All
point
neck.
at a rock and tell me which part is the neck. All of it.
Good point.
Yeah.
I feel like you regret
True.
saying
Yeah.
that, and now you're just really trying to pull it back and be like, no, this makes sense, right?
I mean,
No, I think it makes sense.
it makes total sense, and I would never try to pull
Yeah.
back from like making a statement on this show. Everything that I
Yeah.
say,
All rocks are just
100%
necks.
definitive. Mm-hmm.
We have to all send you a picture of a rock that I took that looks like sourdough bread.
Dude, nice.
remove this part, but I just need to say that I need to send it to you all later.
Please remember to send it to us.
Oh, heavens to Betsy.
Who's Betsy?
The new Scop.
Oh shit!
Oh my god, we found her.
You brought the
Oh
heavens
my
to
gosh.
her.
She was just
Betsy.
standing around a
Isn't
corner, chewing on some hay.
Isn't scop the terminology used to make kombucha?
Is
What?
it?
I
I
don't know
thought
anything
Scop
about
was a-
kombucha besides
like,
that one
genre
video.
of music?
Like, there's this thing that they reuse constantly. It's sort of like the living thing that they use in order to ferment ferment kombucha, or is it scorp? Like something similar to that. I thought
I
that
don't
you
know.
all would be kombucha people, so I
No.
I drink it. I don't make it.
Yeah.
Oh,
Don't.
I'll research that later.
Cool.
I just
Sounds
learned what
great,
it was.
Carla.
What is it? Give us answers,
Oh.
Ben.
No, kombucha. I just
Oh,
learned what that was.
I thought
Oh,
you meant the
God.
process.
Interesting. Very interesting.
Any other ideas? Like, because
Scop.
I don't know. I have a feeling only way you're getting out of this is by making a job offer to someone.
Unfortunately, yes.
Hear me out. If we ended up having to choose her, could Celty get to where we are right now?
I don't think she's unmortal. I think she's just old.
Yeah, she's just an old
But she just
witch.
absorbed a bunch
Yeah.
of magic from another witch that was in her. I think the last witch that was in her
True,
old
but-
coven. So
But that could just be witch magic.
I don't think that makes her unmortal. I think it just makes her less mortal.
Also, we need to figure
Yeah.
out what the
Yeah.
fuck.
No, it makes her less moral.
there we go.
Plus,
Oh,
really-
good point.
I'm really worried about Celti's ethics too.
That's
so
true.
Yeah.
I
She
think-
seems like
eh.
amoral, which seems to be good for a thing that has to consider dozens of timelines. You know?
like I bet she will make the like the confluence of potentiality like a store or
True.
a restaurant or something. And be like, oh, welcome, have a biscuit.
Carla, you know what? That is a really good point. We should definitely not let Celty become in charge of this.
This might be too cursed, and we might not know enough about her.
Cursed.
But
Mm.
battleships.
Oh no.
There was a character introduced this
Ooh.
session who we've heard a lot about, but this is the first time that we've seen her in action.
If
Or some
anyone
form
answers
of her.
other than artist, I'm leaving.
Yeah.
If you
No.
artists off the table for this edition of Battleships.
Oh,
Dang it.
That's so cruel. That's so
I
cruel.
know. This is Teen Fadan, or however old she is, and the fucking, timeline mesh. But
Dang it.
y'all's age group Fadan.
Oh.
Time to play
I'm
some
gonna try to think of,
Battleships,
like,
y'all. It's back.
A Wildcliff student to ship her with now that
Yeah, I'm
now
trying
that they
to
go to
think.
school together.
Yeah. What do we know about
I
Fadan
have-
from this episode? Doesn't like intruders.
From the very
Also very easy to scare.
Doesn't like integrity.
All right,
Is
Carla.
a pile of glass.
Very inquisitive.
I
I've got
just
one.
because like I think that they would be so adorable together. It's like the protest.
Oh,
protest.
Syndra.
Syndra.
Syndra, yeah. I think Syndra might work well with this world's Fadan. Just because I guess like coming from Integrity's perspective where it's like, dude, why you hating me though? Like I know that I just intruded on you and now I'm really weirding you out by being like, your roommate.
You know,
And just like repeating that.
Yeah, that I think Syndra would introduce a lot of adventure into Fadan's life, which
Yes.
artists can no longer do because he's a rock.
Yes. And also maybe like Syndra can like leave some good words about me to Fadan.
Does Syndra really know you? Like, y'all spent one detention
well,
together.
Here's the
A
thing.
lot of what you do is you just take her snacks.
Here's the thing. She knows me enough to know some things about me, but she doesn't know me too much that she will find the negative things about me. So
It's kind of like
nothing but good words.
kind of like
Interesting thought.
a person
Sarah,
like you
you
borrow a
said that
pen
you have-
from.
I do have one, and you're gonna have to hear me out here. But I
Oh.
think that student age Fadan would go very well with Kurt or Lane, and let me explain why. One, she has a problem of like shattering into glass. She needs someone good at repairs. We can't glue her back together. Who's good at repairs? Kurt or
Holy
Lane.
shit.
She doesn't want people coming into her dorm when she's out. Guess who literally never leaves his dorm? Kurt or Lane, baby. She's sort of an adventurer. She's gonna need gadgets. She's gonna need gear. Who's gonna be like her Q? Kurt or Lane. Those two, perfect duo together. Love it. And because Kurt is like roommates with Winsler, Winsler can like hang out with Fadan and like we can learn all about her via that area. So Fadan X Kurt or Lane forever.
Sarah,
What
I
a
hate you
world
so
we live
much.
in.
like your points are like, I'm 0 and I feel like you're going to reach 100. That is, you've made such good points.
Carla, you can rethink before you lock in, before we get to the end, if you can think of any better ones, if you think you can beat Kurt. Ben, Sam, y'all have anyone?
I actually don't hate you.
I got an interesting one. I don't know if it's on the table or not, just because of who I am thinking of, but we are allowed to use any, like, student, right?
Yeah, I would say so. Well, this is, I am nervous about you, about this intro.
Okay. So let me tell you my ship. We will ship Fadan, this younger age Fadan, with Winsler Wallaby.
Hey, straight up, I literally had the exact same thought, because I was like,
Based on the reason alone, Winsler is a good listener and left her room when she scaredly asked.
Very good point.
yep.
Compared to everyone else, and didn't try to like pull any bullshit. He was told to do something and he did what he was told to do. And I feel like Fadan would love a good
Winsler
listener.
respects boundaries. Good BF. Hell yeah. Shit. Hell yeah. I
Didn't expect that one, huh?
No, I was actually thinking, damn, it's really weird how we never actually include the player characters, you know?
One step ahead.
Ben, your mind.
Allow me to introduce myself.
All right, Sam.
It's hard to think, because, like, it's hard to think of someone just because it's weird to, I don't know, combine the, because, like, for a lot of our stuff, it's been, oh yeah, Fadan hasn't been here for a long time, and then suddenly she's here, and now we're like, hey, who do you think would bring her flowers in between classes and say she's pretty? To which case, I've suddenly thought of somebody, that for young student AU Fadan, Ira Alaro. I think Ira is a fun person just to relax with. Like, you can go out to one of the the fields, lay down in the grass or something, like just like watch like the luminescent fungi or whatever is at the top of the caves, like kind of stargazing. I think it would like
Fadan's nickname is Digger. Ira Laro, known dirt girl.
mud person.
Very good point.
Like, yeah.
Yeah. I think they would spend many a days frolicking outside and then be dragged to class by their friends.
That's very cute.
Yeah, that is very cute.
So would you say that Fadan digs her?
Hey!
Good joke. Good joke.
Thank you.
All right. Before voting, I will go over everyone's choices once more. Carla suggesting Syndra, Sarah suggesting Kurt, Ben suggesting Winsler, and a very big power move. And then Sam suggesting Ira. If you all could, go ahead and DM me who you think would be the best match for student AU Fadan.
All right.
All right, everyone. Once again, big fucking home run, knocking it out of the park in a unanimous vote. Kurt or Lane would be a perfect match.
Boo!
Yes!
Boo!
You voted for Kurt.
Boo. Oh my god.
Yeah, but
why would you boo her?
I still lose.
Why are you booing? She was right.
Carla really keeping that perfect score.
Oh, well, that is it for this incredibly cursed entry in Battleships. Thank you all.
It's blurst.
Yeah.
It's cursed.
Oh, fuck. Thank you all once again for joining
It's
me.
getting worse.
Thank
I
you.
appreciate you all very
Thanks.
much. And listen, dear listener, please join me after the break when I go to slide into the DMs with our good friend Luke, last name redacted. Welcome back to another installment of Sliding into the DMs. I am your host, Nathan, and Luke is joining me from another timeline.
Hi. Well, yes, in a way, in a sense, a different potentiality would be the words I would choose to use.
I'm not the DM, so I can be much freer with my word choice.
That's true.
Anyways,
It's true.
Well, perfect. Luke, it's so good to have you joining me, and nothing
I'm glad
happened.
to be here in the studio.
In the studio, yep. Should we just start again? Should we just take it from the top?
No, God, no. This is beautiful.
We'll see. I am going to actually be editing this episode, and for that reason, if it sounds a bit rough, don't say anything to me about it. I'm still learning.
Yeah. If you didn't notice the other episodes that have been edited by other people, then you won't notice this one being really different. And the only reason you noticed is because Nathan pointed it out. So don't be a jerk and say anything about it.
Well, this is all getting to the blooper reel. I'm just going to go straight to the first question.
Right in the bin.
Oh, yeah, no. Listen. This will be the first episode of CNC that is just unreleased. We're just going to go straight to 9. I wanted to talk to you about... See, already my first question has a big hole in it because it begins with... Messing with time is typically intimidating while DMing. And now I realize it's not time, it's potentiality.
It could, yeah, in a way. Is that the full question, though?
No, that was more of a statement to like lead into the question.
Okay.
The actual question was just, how did you decide which parts of Wildcliff to shift around? Was there a method to the madness, or was it just, this could be different in a fun way?
There's two answers to that. In terms of, or I guess there would be two tiers to answer that question.
I would like
one
both.
Is, yeah, absolutely. One is set dressing. Set dressing is decided in the moment, in the heat of my thoughts, when I look at my players' blank expressions and go, what do these schmucks need to know? Yeah, the frickin' you might catch this as an interesting note, which I guess that would not put it in this tier, so I won't actually mention right now. The gardens, if I don't talk about the greenhouses, let me come back to that.
That was actually one of the things that I like had in mind as a
Perfect.
thing that shifted, but continue.
Perfect. But things like the infirmary, right? That wasn't a poignant thing that I had thought about beforehand. I thought about the implications of this kind of shift and everything, and so that allows me a lot of freedom in just coming up with those things on the fly. But the actual infirmary itself being shifted as a structure, not incredibly important to the grand story or the grand narrative at hand here. That's an in the moment kind of thing. You're making a lot of faces.
My face has fallen because I got a really good theory, and one of the backing evidence to it was, this is why the infirmary changed shape.
Interesting.
So keep an eye out for tinfoilery, because I got some really good ones after 125.
That's fascinating. I'm glad for that. That's fascinating. But so those kind of changes, like, there being, what else really, was there any other really poignant changes? The set dressing things that will continue to be displayed throughout this arc to like show my hand, most of those will be just things that I came up with in that moment. The things that we linger on, at least in the start of the arc, like Fadan being there, Artis not being there in any shape or form, one of the towers being gone, and the whole Fadan room situation, as well as the greenhouses, those are specific. Those are for a reason which serves the mechanism at play here, which I hope they will find out in the next episode 128, and then we can move on to other things.
Interesting.
Which I think you, Nathan, have an idea of what that means, but the audience, the listeners, won't really have as good idea of what that means, just because of behind the scenes conversations.
Absolutely. The other potential Wildcliff. Did you have you've kind of answered this, but I also do want to get a broader question in. Did you already have an idea of what that other Wildcliff would look like on its own, not merged in with Wildcliff Prime or Prime Cliff?
Yeah, absolutely I do. I think the key to understanding things just in general, and this is just a lot of my own personal train of thought and my own personal education and just skills at identifying things, is in looking at things as systems, right? And so to me, to try to see Wildcliff and see this result, I guess, or this concatenation, this converged version, without knowing what that other one looks like, at least in a theoretical sense, not in a formal I've made a map of it sense, but at least in a theoretical, following a couple of questions to their answer way of what would the buildings be like? What would the people be like? Are the uniforms different? How many people were there? Those kind of larger questions that I initially asked myself for this Wildcliff, I think those needed to be answered in my own head at the very least, so that I had an idea of where we could put these two or more wild cliffs together, where the confluence of potentiality might be, right? Like the intersection of all these things.
And it's very interesting to hear the players kind of try to suss out what the reason is behind like what gets changed and what doesn't.
Yeah, I agree. Integrity walking down the stairs in the dormitories was especially like interesting to me because we had one scene where Mira noticed a couple of things were different on campus while they were just waiting around for Serenep, which was like, oh, this makes sense as a thing that you would trying to be figuring out, or like a point at which you could notice quite a few different things. And she did so. And then Integrity later in it kind of almost not impromptu, because obviously there's a reason she was doing those things and going and fetching the orb and checking the rest of the dormitory, but her just rigorously checking, is this floor different? Is this floor different? Is this floor different? Was kind of, that came about as a much greater shock than I expected. Like, I don't know. I just didn't expect them to go through this with a fine-tooth comb, as it were.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
No, I follow you. It's that kind of feeling of, your players are going to engage with something that you don't prepare for. And that is just always going to be the way, no matter what session you run.
But that's part of knowing what that other wild cliff is like and how I want them to be shown together. That's where that comes in really handy, because it means I don't have to have a plan for every single different scenario. I just need to understand the reason why these things are happening, and then I can improvise very easily and freely when they go to investigate at a scale that I didn't expect, right?
Absolutely.
Like, to say if they walked over to the dirt and was like, is the dirt different? That's an easy question to answer. Like those like fine details are sometimes easy to answer.
It's Crow Mercantile dirt, obviously. Like,
I forgot that happened in the episode.
God, I was really frustrated that you didn't like lean in more with like a lot of and a lot of the chairs are Crow Mercantile chairs in that one area that just has hundreds of them for no reason, or for a reason now, which is I assume the Wildcliff population has now doubled, which
much more than doubled.
Tripled?
Much more than tripled.
Quintupled?
There was 96 students in the school before this point, and in that small little place where Mira previously might have seen like 10 or 12, I think she probably would have seen like 100, 200, something like that. Like an incredible, like just a very evident increase in the student density on campus.
So they went from a private university to a public one. I'm following you.
Yes.
Okay, gotcha. The dining hall situation has got to be a mess, I bet.
Yeah, I'm sad they didn't go inside there, but it's very reasonable and understandable why they didn't.
Still time.
There's other stuff.
Yeah, this is not a thing that's going to be resolved. Knock on wood, I don't think this is going to be a thing that is erased next episode. I am that was actually one of my questions, which is what minor things have you've changed or adjusted in those terms of like food? Is like the art different around here? Like a part of me is really interested in how, what the different culture looks like from the alternate Wildcliff.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
I
didn't know if you'd put any thought into that or not.
Yeah, I have now. Which is it might be telling. From my perspective, that's telling of what what everything is. But I didn't think about it being an alternate universe until they even brought up, is there a different artist in this universe? Like, I guess that question I addressed. But then being like, is there a different swim in this universe? Are we going to meet alternate integrity alt and all these other things? And so to me, again, saying that it's an alternate universe is just factually incorrect. This is not an alternate universe. And I want to make that clear to everyone. I will stress that to the players next time we record, even if it continues to be a misunderstanding. This is not in any way an alternate universe.
Can you please tell me the difference between a different potentiality and an alternate universe?
Yeah. If I had 2 cookies and they were I had my 2 chocolate chip cookies, right? They were identical in every aspect except one I put a mark that says 1 on it, right? Those are alternate cookies. I could switch them out. They're the same, but they're different in different ways, right? The chocolate chips are in different places. The internal crumbs won't, if I crumbled them, they wouldn't break apart in the same way.
But they're all still made from the same dough.
Yeah. In this one, imagine I took 1,000 cookies and just smushed them into a cookie ball and handed it to you, right? This is not an alternate universe.
Right. It is a bunch of alternate universes mushed together is what I'm saying.
It's a confluence
Ugh.
of potentiality.
It's so heady.
I feel like such a fucking idiot or like an asshole when I'm like talking about this. And because I've seen people in the audience being like, it's an alternate universe. I'm like, interesting that you call it an alternate universe. Or even Sarah was saying like, is this the Wildcliff where X didn't happen? I'm like, it's very interesting that you think that's the case, right?
Yeah.
Because I don't know. The potentiality thing is way more interesting to me than like you need to go back to that and address it. There was a line what was the terminology that was coined in the early part of this episode for the person who's in charge of that? Do you remember?
I don't know what terminology you're referring to.
The shepherd of potentiality or whatever.
The SCOP.
The SCOP.
Yeah, the shepherd of the confluence of potentiality. The SCOP.
Okay. The SCOP.
I didn't realize that you had already listened to the roughs of the player section.
The SCOP says this line of, this is the place, something along the lines of this. I apologize if it's not 100% correct, but this is the place, or I watch over what is, what isn't, and what can never come to be, right? And so in my imagination of it, like an alternate reality is just that's a whole can of worms. It could be anything, right? That's the joy of alternate realities. That's the joy of coffee shop AUs and people just making anything they want, or like an alternate reality where X doesn't happen, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's the joy of those kind of things. And the potentiality one is a way to play around with the concepts of D&D is a game where you roll little dice on the table and that determines what happens. And so there's always that joy of what could be, but also as a DM you need to know there are things that can just never come to be, right?
Right.
Just because the character rolls 20 doesn't mean they succeed.
Exactly.
Right?
Or there are some things that a character can try that they will not be able to roll for because it's impossible.
Yeah.
Like, you cannot pick up a wooden sword and then attempt to hit a dragon. You can roll a 20 on it.
Yeah.
That's still, it's a wooden sword. Get over yourself.
Yeah, exactly. And so that's like an in-game way of like approaching those kind of thoughts, right? Which is interesting to me to even think about. I don't know if that's interesting to anyone else, but that's why we haven't focused on it, because I don't know if it's interesting to anyone else. But what comes along with that final part, what can never come to be, includes a large list of things that exclude all those things in an alternate reality or an alternate universe, right?
I see.
So we could have alternate universes and all these things, but the list is shrunken by that caveat of there are things in this world, in this setting, that can just never come to pass.
If
right?
we're using the cookie analogy,
Mm-hmm.
it would be like making a caviar cookie out of a chocolate chip like cookie dough.
Yeah.
I follow you. Okay.
Yeah. Does that make sense? Is that a good enough explanation for why I don't view it as like alternate universe? I mean, people can still do that if that's easier for you to wrap your head around, because it's really the same thing and I'm just being an asshole about it.
I don't think you're being an asshole about it. I do think there is a very fine distinction between the two.
Mm-hmm.
However, I also think that if it matters to you, then it is something that should be respected. As an interviewer, I should listen to you and be like, yeah, no, like the way that you explained it does make sense to me. And I can now see the difference between the alternate universe and potentialities.
Yeah, I hope to make that a bit more clear as we go forward. It's my goal to make that clear as we go forward, at the very least.
I think that the more time like that, we spend with it, the more we'll be able to understand it. I think the alternate universe talk really comes from a bit of like seeing a lot of different things and not knowing what the barometer is, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, that does make a lot of sense, because a lot of people are operating, both player and audience member, operating on very little information at this point. And so the kind of thought would immediately, obviously, I think, drift to alternate reality or alternate universe and that kind of thing. And so my hope going forward is to show the things. I think the key to understanding is showing that some things, no matter what the potential, or like some things just have no potential to occur, right? I think that showing that certain things were always going to happen the way they happened, and that certain things were impossible in the universe from the get-go, is the key to understanding that this isn't just like a bog standard different reality where, oh, someone invented a ship or a train instead of a boat, and so now we're on this entirely different timeline, right? This isn't a timeline thing either, really. It's there's nuance to it that I don't know if it's easy to convey, or if it's necessary to convey, because I just want the characters to explore this little world and then go and do their things.
Yeah, I think, I don't think the characters, or I'll say this, like reading some discussion online, like I don't think the characters or the fans necessarily fully understood Isithil, but they didn't need to for it to be like a good setting.
Absolutely.
So I think all of this very cool, and like it's still cool even if it doesn't come to light within the actual canon of the podcast.
Well, I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah, this is just my 2 cents, but I have a microphone.
Exactly. Your 2 cents are worth a lot more since you're saying them to me.
That's because I make a lot of sense, am I right? Hey!
You can't cut that joke.
All right. Well, I'm sensing I should move on to the next question. Now, a part of the nuance that I do want to get into there of potentiality and the choices that you made with how Wildcliff was introduced here was also, tell me, how did you decide what characters would be here? Because, or hearing you say things about things that can never be and things that would always have been makes me think, and this is just my very mean mind going like, Fadan shouldn't be here because she was always fated to die, just because I like artists being doomed.
Yeah, I think I've said this before on Discord or maybe privately with the players, and I know you've keyed in as it's being something that you really like, but one of my foundational things for artists is him being the one who got like left behind, or him being the only one here. Even if he's not the one that can answer all the questions or do all the tasks, he's not a chosen one or the great hero. He's just the dude who fucking lasted.
He's just
right?
what's
he's
left.
The one who's left.
Oh,
yeah.
And I love that so much. I especially really like it with artists, just because, no offense to him, or actually, screw it, yeah. But artists, we haven't seen him be like, he hasn't lasted due to his own skill necessarily. He has been very fortunate for a long time.
Yes. And a part of that even comes from just him. We're supposed to believe that this frickin' elf has been at this school for 300 some odd years as an independent researcher and accomplished absolutely nothing, has furthered his goals 0%, but also survived that time, right?
Yeah.
And so if we contrast that with someone who we in canon know to be a folklore hero who's gone out and tried to solve these problems and more, and is now been missing for 60 years, dead, I think it's very easy to see why Artis is still here, right?
Yeah.
That
God,
just dumb luck as well as not doing dumb stuff.
Not even necessarily doing dumb stuff. It's just he's staying home, like
Yeah.
he is a
Artis isn't a hero.
Yeah, it's like he's an adventurer who refused the call to adventure.
Yeah, that's a very good way of putting it, Nathan.
Thank you very much.
I think that fits. I think it fits a lot with. I've been contemplating this recently about the seeming reluctant hero syndrome that we've seen within our characters, within the students. And a lot of that I can put to the fact of coming off some bad interactions just with the outer world at large, like bad interactions with Isithil, the general bad taste of the Ferdinand situation, and now the Pebble demon and everything like that. I understand why there's a reluctance here and a desire to return things to normal or to much lower stakes. Yeah.
But they made one really big mistake, which I think is interesting if that is like their aim is to return to like lower stakes, which is they made the mistake of being main characters. And so like fucking rookie mistake. You gotta be a Gnall type to really succeed in Wildcliff is what I've seen. Gnall, Lucia, they've got it made,
Yeah, Arior, boys having troubles in his classes. They don't have translators because this is a trash school, but like didn't get his mentor turned into a pebble, hasn't gotten a woman beheaded, doesn't owe a frog creature immortality stuff that has now absent.
You saying that made me think. A part of me wonders if this is like too spoilery or not even something that you've really considered, but this Wildcliff being, having all these potentialities rolled up into it, I imagine, and we kind of see this with Toll being there, kind of a better place for a lot of these folks, Chances are, in one of the potentialities, there may have been a translator, or at least a dwarf at Wildcliff who could actually help Arior.
Mhm.
And I wonder if there is consideration in going forward with this, a plot arc of, is that going to be a point of tension for the characters as they try to bring things back to normal?
Like, are parts of this world better than the way they were
Yeah.
originally? It might be a spoiler, but I don't quite frankly care. I'm not certain how these characters will solve the entire situation. I know the mechanism underlying it, but I very badly want to find out through play how the players and characters want to approach handling it.
Mm-hmm.
And so if they do come to realize that some things are better and that some things worked out better in a different potentiality, I think that it's up to them to figure out that underlying mechanism and deal with it in a way that they think is the most suitable. Because there are ways out of this that I could probably see, like a lot of them, where they could just leave it the way it is, quite frankly, right? Like, sure, they shattered Fadan into a million pieces, but if they just left stuff alone, who's to say that it would just not remain the way it is?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think you could probably intuit that that's not the case.
No, it
just based on
seems to
other
be
things happening.
degrading as time goes on, or at
Mhm.
least that's kind of like what I got from
Yeah.
the SCOP showing up in Fadan's room, is like, things
Mhm.
are going to begin, like, we're going to see more of this, aren't we?
Mm-hmm. It's not just an oversight. I want to be clear about this. There are lots of oversights in the show.
Don't
One of them
tell
that I
us
want
if
to
there are
point to-
oversights, though. Don't mention
Yeah,
it.
I won't point at the oversights because that's not what I want you to pay attention to. I'll point at the things that people might view as oversights that I want to very firmly confirm that they're not, and that I am sometimes competent and think things through. The greenhouses were there when they came back up, and they were gone when they went there the next morning.
Hell yeah.
And I think that hits on what you're talking about very, very well, Nathan.
I'm a bad listener because I did not catch that whatsoever. This is my job to
It's
listen to
all
the
good.
podcast closely. I really fucked it up.
Well, for those of you who didn't notice, just like Nathan, Easter egg.
And also-
the greenhouses were there.
Now you know, like, it's okay to miss things sometimes.
Exactly. Yeah. There's just so much shit happening, right? And that's a failing, quite frankly, it's a show for binging, if that makes sense. Right? Like, getting all these details back to back to back to back, unfortunately, like, just the way that my brain sometimes works, where it wants to throw out 80 plot hooks all in a cluster in one episode, right? It makes it really hell for a year ago when Shake and Break happened, and they went to, like, or a year and a half ago when they went to the Confluence of Potentiality, and then now a year later when I'm like, you didn't do anything, and Sam and Ben are like, fuck, we didn't have it. What are you talking about?
A question about everything that's going on here, which is, and this might be a behind the screen type question that is not available for answer, or maybe you haven't even thought about it. Is this affecting other planes as well? Like, is Isithil also going through a confluence? Have they been going through one, and we just didn't recognize it in the previous arc?
They, in fact, were. In my attempt to show the gun, to use a popular saying, I had it. They looked through Semilai's journal, and it was talking about how the elders had left because there was this seeming problem with reality. Semilai had this injury on their person with, like, mold and fungus, and they were like, it's because realities or the worlds have just been colliding in some way, like overlapping in some way, more and more frequently.
Fuck, it's one of those things that I now recognize in hindsight as like, shit, yeah, you absolutely were showing the barrel of the gun here. We just did not recognize it at all.
And I think that's, Nathan, why repeat listening of the show is really fun for everyone.
Yeah, hey, everyone. Go back and start from the beginning and binge it, and also make sure to download each episode. Like, that way we can really pump those numbers up. We need those stats, baby.
One of the things that's similar to that is, this is completely unrelated, or I guess it's related in a way. You could argue that it's related in a way. Is the Crow Mercantile Corp precedes my entire idea of Wildcliff even existing. And so from the beginning, I knew I wanted this character here. And so he showed up Crow is in the show from episode early, like right after Pitter Patter. So probably like episode 28, 29, when they go and visit with the council right before their exams or in the middle of their exams. And then they don't know this character's name or anything, but then they carry on. And then like a day later in canon, Integrity gets handed a catalog because she's wanting pink topazes, and it's a Crow Mercantile Corporation catalog. And then whenever they do these things, I'm like, I know. And it says Crow Mercantile Corporation on it.
D&D tip for any DMs out there. Put a big corporation in your game. That way you can have like a brand name and also like a really good antagonist who is leading the corporation.
A really, really easy world building tactic that also gives you fun themes and plots to deal with is just having brands in your world, because it makes it really fun. Because then even sometimes the players will like double down on that, right? Like them asking about stuff can be Crow Mercantile Court and all these other things.
And what's also really nice is that it makes you, and this is off topic from the episode, but who cares, is one thing that I really like about the Crow Mercantile Corporation as an entity in this world is that it really reframes noble houses like Sereneth's family.
Yes.
Just because...
hopefully we'll see more of that in this arc too.
Ooh.
Yeah, because it's Autumn's End.
True. Hell yeah. Sereneth has 7 different families show up, all of them.
Don't get distracted by the timey-wimey potentiality bullshit. This is still Autumn's End, folks.
Hell yeah. That is the teaser. I know CNC doesn't get teasers, but that's the teaser we're throwing out there. Man, I just love shitty capitalists as characters.
It's so good.
I really want Crow to just be their new mentor. I want them to go to Crow and be like, our mentor got put in a rock, and then Crow being like, I have an open door policy, and you know what else?
I need to really engage with the students, is what the council's been telling me, what my board of advisors has been telling me. So I'll become your mentor just so that I know what the students and student life is like.
I mean, you are writing this down, right? This is gold.
It writes itself, people. It writes itself.
Listen, if you
It's
just
so
needed
good.
a fanfic inspo, there it is for you.
Crow is their new mentor. Osei Crow, Headmaster Osei Crow. Named after one of my most formative teachers, for the record.
Really? Why did you want to name...
Yeah, I do that.
Like,
I do that quite often.
I don't know if Crow is a bad guy. Just knowing what I know about you, I assume he is.
Yeah.
But like, interesting choice to name like a bad guy after a cool teacher. I know that is very reductive on both counts, but still.
Yeah, I get it. Yeah, I just like naming people after like the names that pop into my head, or the people that are important to me, even if they're like a meaningless thing. I don't know. You can pay tribute or an homage to people in ways. Bailey Blue's an homage. There's a lot of homages to stuff. People's names are plants. The entire show is just a love letter to things I love and things that have built me as a person. And so just naming people stuff isn't like, it's not indicative of their character. I'm just like, your name is a good name. I'm going to use it here.
That's really lovely. And I think, you know what? That's also a really good note for us to end on, if that's all right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Do you want to go ahead and do the outro for us, since it's an even numbered episode?
Sure thing. Thank you everyone for listening. If you liked this episode or any of the others we've made, please leave a review and rating on your podcatcher, or if you really want, on Apple Podcasts. And failing that, if you just want to not leave a review, but tell a friend or just another person on this earth that you liked the show and that you would recommend it, that really means quite a bit more than leaving a review.
Also, why wouldn't you leave a review, though? It takes like 2 seconds to put 5 stars on that. Do it now while you're thinking about it. Come on.
It's true.
Unless you're driving.
Yes. If you're driving, please do not. Please focus on driving. We hope that you drive safely.
And also, if you're driving, we're not responsible, okay? So sorry.
Also, if you like seeing teasers, or hearing teasers rather, seeing art, sending us art, all of these things and more, seeing funny retweets, etc., follow us on social media at Trials and Trebs on Instagram and Twitter. It's a very fun and punctual time. And again, if you do make art, send it to us, tag us in it so that we can see it and share it, and all of these amazing things. Just love it in general, because all the art that the people of this listen to this show make is exceptional, and I'm very happy that so many members of the audience are amazing artists. It's shocking to me, actually.
It's honestly
as someone
incredible.
who cannot make art. Yeah.
Oh, it blows my mind.
Yeah. If you are interested talking to other people in the audience, you could join our Discord server, links to which are in our episode descriptions. And if you go back about 6 millennia on those social media platforms, you'll find them. But I would just recommend the episode description.
It's so much easier to use the episode description.
It's so much easier. Also in the episode description, and I guess my final little plug here, is the Patreon. We have a Patreon so that we can afford to pay the cast members, pay for hosting fees, all of these things and more, pay for equipment that breaks or new equipment that we need. And so your contribution on there, your support of us, is very, very helpful. And if you would like to support us, that is the single best way you could do it if you have the means to do so. And in return for that, and on top of just making the show, which we hope you enjoy, you get fun things like bonus episodes. You get sometimes updates if there's really fun stuff happening. You get to vote on what bonus episodes we do next, provided those are coming up in the pipeline. And you can make a Patreon bonus NPC or a Patreon NPC.
Hell yeah, Canon Nathan. That's how I got on the podcast originally. And the Patreon also allowed me to get on the podcast in this way as well. The show wouldn't be possible without the support of our patrons. So thank you all so much.
And on that subject, there's some fun goals, such as improv lessons or eventually a musical episode. But that's way off in the distance. If you liked this show and want to support us financially, that's where you can do it. And I think that's about it, Nathan.
Well, excellent. Thank you to everyone for joining us. And this is where the outro goes. Because I'm editing this one. No, see, what's nice about me editing this one is while editing, I can just record a pickup of me doing an outro, and it'll be like, "Oh, that was a great callback to something that happened in the players section, Nathan." Ooh la la. All right. Anyways, y'all have a wonderful time of day wherever it is where you are.
Bye.
Bye.